Today is Sunday, March 30th, 2025. I welcome you to this day, and I begin by asking you if there are questions or comments that you may have from the last discussions or from anything that you read or been brought to your attention.
Hey, well, Reb, I got a question, and my question is, we've discussed somewhat about the spiritual man or the spiritual being, and my question is, can you get the true effects of being a spiritual being, being a hypocrite, and practicing double standards? And to answer my own question, I say no. Just wanted to hear what your answer would be and answers of others. Thank you.
You cannot experience being a spiritual being if you are trying to if you're living a lie, meaning that if you are trying to maintain the journey that you were on before you started learning about who you are, no, you will not have the experiences of spirituality that others will have who have committed themselves to the journey. Now, I find that this idea of hypocrite is relative. Being hypocritical is relative to what you perceive someone else's belief to be, as opposed to what they really are. So that to me is open to each individual, as opposed to being a collective thing. There are those who are engaged in the things, the journey that we are on, and they may appear to be hypocritical from the outside because of their interactions with people who are in church and because they go to religious settings, but they are not embracing what's being taught or what's being presented, I should say, in those religious settings. Now, from the outside, they would be hypocritical, but for knowing who they are, that's something totally different. And being a hypocrite goes far beyond spirituality anyway, because the word hypocrite comes from the Greek word, and it speaks to performances on the stage where someone puts on a mask and pretend to be someone who they are not. That's where the whole theory of being a hypocrite emanates. And so I don't see how you can. Because you're playing both sides against the middle, or you're trying to live on both sides of the road. That's not going to happen. And well, that's it so far. Anyone else want to address that?
Yeah, good morning, everyone. This is GC in Philly, and I just want to, just respond to that by just saying, there's a pretentiousness in terms of individuals or a individual who is in that state of pretending, you know what I mean, that they are walking in spirit and truth, but at the same time, having a total different underlying reason for wanting to create division or create a misunderstanding with regards to that divisiveness. So I think, we need to look at it in truth and look at it in the principles that we have discussed during the past, but more importantly, that divisiveness or pretentiousness is something that is real. And I think that a person has to do that self-reflection or self-examination in terms of how you see yourself being perceived or what it is that you're trying to put out there. So those are my thoughts. I'm done.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Okay. George, does that help you?
Yes, at least from the part of being a hypocrite, Reverend Richard. And if you are a hypocrite or a person or I'm a hypocrite, could you just talk a little bit about the double standard? Can you obtain the spiritual energy by having a double standard, or is a double
What do you mean by
standard
double
and
standard?
what was that?
What do you mean by double standard?
You show favor with one, and you don't show favor with the other. Example: when a group of guys took the female to Jesus for an adulterous act, there was no male. Why crucify or chastise the female and there's no male? The Samaritan female, she went to the well in the hottest part of the day when a well is designed to go in the coolest part of the day. Was she facing ridicule by way of a double standard? If that helps, thank you.
Okay. I think the woman at the well, it was not so much of a double standard as it was persecution. And a better example would be the one that you talked about, the woman being stoned. Um, Double standards sometimes are misinterpreted because I'm giving an example of what I'm saying. I have 4 girls, and I treat all 4 of them differently. I have a son, and I treat him different than I do my 4 girls totally. And the reason I treat them differently is because they're not the same person. My approach to them is predicated on their personalities. And because of them having different personalities, someone from the outside would say that I'm applying double standards to them because one of them I may say, no, you don't. You don't need to do that. You shouldn't do that because blah 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 blah. And the other one I ask the same question about doing the same thing, and I say, yeah, why not? And it's simply because of the difference in their personalities. It appears that I'm applying a double standard, but I'm not. Does that make sense, George?
Yeah, thank you.
Uh-huh. All I'm saying by the bottom line is that uh, appearances are not always what we think they are. And the on the reasoning that things are being handled the way they are needs to be understood before they can be labeled as a double standard. That's all I'm saying. Thank you, George. Any other questions or comments?
Um, Good morning. Yeah, I wanted to respond to that as well. In terms of the uh, double standard and hypocrisy and its sort of relationship to your ability to develop spiritually, and the when we talk about the energy that you learn how to sort of gather and direct as a result of your uh, desire for spirituality. I think if you hold a contradictory sort of mindset within yourself, you will never be able to bring full balance or sort of coherence to your own mental and emotional state. And that balance and coherence is necessary in order to sort of be still and know, in the way that it is written about that, to be still and know. And that is the method by which you, let's say, interface with the energy that is present flowing through you that you would be able to utilize in certain ways, but cannot if you hold a sort of self-contradictory, out of balance mind state or belief within yourself. So hypocrisy is sort of self-defeating, because if you are knowingly being hypocritical, then that makes it produces two competing things within yourself, and you will never be able to sort of fully bring to balance or a state of peace what you need to in order to sort of do what we are capable of spiritually and energetically. Thank you.
Thank
I
you,
have a
sir.
question.
Go ahead.
So if you're hypocritical, that means you're living a lie. You have someone thinking that you are this way, but then really you're not.
Yeah,
Is that the same as living a lie? And you're lying. If it's so, you're lying to yourself and not no one else.
yeah. I see it that way. What about you, Nick?
Yep, that makes sense.
You lying to
You can
yourself.
try to lie to yourself, but you can't lie to yourself ultimately. You will be living in a sort of illusion that you create for yourself. And as long as you live in that illusion, you will, to some extent, cut yourself off from reality. Thank you.
And there's no spiritual growth either, is it?
But there is no spirituality at all. You live in confusion. You creating chaos within.
Isn't that kind of tie in what we talked about yesterday? About the curse. So if you're living in confusion or you can't find the balance in yourself, then you sort of curse yourself.
Yeah, I can see that.
That's why, not to be too on the nose in terms of politics, but that's why sort of the mindset that is behind fascism always collapses within itself. It's self-defeating. It must always project its own internal chaos onto something else externally. And in the case of the European mindset, and it's
Nick,
in the way
Nick,
that
Nick, hold 1 second. Would you make sure your phones are muted, please? Okay, Nick, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Thank you. And in the case of the European mindset, in the 353, we can hear some sort of echo from your number. I think I can hear myself through that, but not sure. Anyway, in the case of the European mindset, it is the sort of fascistic thing that it produces must always, as I said, project that internal chaos onto something else. And the European does it onto the African, or that mindset does it onto the thing that it perceives as most different or separate from itself, which is the African. Without that projection, the hypocrisy, the internal contradiction, etc., would just essentially drive it insane. And it sort of does, and that it is also part of the projection. Anyway, thank you.
So, good morning, our Grand Rising family. Based on what you're saying, my question is, this is Kathy, is it possible to be a hypocrite and not know it? And what I mean by that is, and I'm just gonna phrase it this way, and I hope it'll make sense. In a religious setting, if I'm in a religious setting and I'm being taught to do things that is antithetical to spirituality, but I think I'm being spiritual, and then you come into a setting where we're teaching like we're teaching, that person or those people would perceive what we're doing as being the wrong thing, and they would see us as the hypocrite because they would possibly think that, whoa, what are y'all doing? You're not jumping up and down, you're not praising, you're not raising your hands, you're not running up and down the aisles, you're not shouting, you're not doing all of those things that we have been taught is spiritual. So my question becomes, can you be a hypocrite without even knowing you're being a hypocrite based on your perception of what you think truth and reality really is?
If I could respond to that, yes, absolutely you can. And that is, it will create internal confusion. Now, it is worse if you are knowingly a hypocrite, but if you are unknowingly, which is basically you are doing something that is counter to what the natural flow is or what the spiritual instinct is, even if you have been taught to do that thing that is counter to what is natural, it will create on some level that same internal conflict that you will eventually have to learn how to resolve. So it's kind of like you can be unconsciously, you can try to swim against the stream unconsciously, and you will still have some of that internal tension or whatever that is created by being or moving against the natural flow of things. But it would be worse if you were consciously doing that, if that makes sense. So it's, I would say yes and no.
I think you answered my part of it, Nick, because that's what I was thinking is I think Kathy's question was very interesting, but I think in seeking spirituality, it is almost impossible to be unconscious if that's what you're truly doing. And I agree with you. There's going to be some friction, uh, some in you that moves in the other direction. If you're truly seeking that, I mean, because I look at the number of people on this phone individually. Some of us may have come from one church or another collectively, but you came individually because of something tugging inside of you. I think in any other discipline that could be true. I don't know if it's so true in spirituality because that's the total essence of truth that is in all of us trying to reveal itself. And no matter what direction you move in for a while, it's going to speak to you. So I don't know. I just think that would be hard to do if your motives are 100% pure.
Well, if your motive is 100% pure, good, and you're focused on spiritual truth, then it is impossible. And the reason I say that it's an impossibility is because your true motive will guide you, and excuse me, your true pure desire rather will guide you in the direction that you desire to go. Right now, when we are talking, there are things that we discussed, like the thing on the curse yesterday. How much discussion, how much time we put into that discussion. Um, it, it was simply because we wanted to get clarity on it because of our desires. However, in a religious setting, you simply give people an answer and keep it moving without any true explanation of it. Or you say things like, well, God didn't intend for us to understand all things, that kind of thing. But I do not think that you could ever be hypocritical if your true desire is for truth. If your real desire is to understand the nature of spirituality, it's impossible to be hypocritical. You can be wrong, not hypocritical.
I guess I even take it a step further. And this way you may differ with me, and let's please discuss it if you do. Uh, I remember when I got ready to move, my move from Aiken had nothing to do with economics. It had to do with a search for self. And one of the things I remember is a lot of people, loved ones, and close friends of mine saying, you leaving the church, you leaving your family church. And they made me feel guilty. But there was something in me, even my dad and I had that conversation. But there is nothing in me that does not believe that my dad was sincere. His sincerity took him as far as he could go, and then I picked up the torch. So I don't think it's everybody who will see and feel where we are now. And I don't mean that in a boastful way at all. I'm saying we are all connected, and it may not be necessary for everybody, because every one of us know family and friends who are extremely sincere about what they believe in, and their worship of the scriptures, their belief in the scriptures. But I think our attachment to them is what uplifts them and takes them to the next place. So even saying, what I believe, that I don't think you can be sincere and not reach a goal or move out of that comfort place. I think it is a spiritual thing that uh, we move not at the same time, or all search for the same thing. Maybe out of necessity is for people to stay in certain places. But I'm kind of rambling now. But I think you understand what I'm trying to say anyway.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Pastor.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say I accidentally hung up when Ron was speaking and I had to dial back in. So I did miss some of the explanation. But the purpose for my question was sitting in a room of people yesterday and watching them respond to even what their pastor was saying to them at a funeral, and seeing, I hadn't been in that setting in a very long time. And it was nothing in me that would make me believe, because half of the people that were on the floor jumping, shouting, doing all of these various things, many of them are ministers, female ministers. And I know they're sincere in their search. They really are. Not where we are. And I'm not saying, I'm trying to be very careful in how I word this, because I'm not trying to criticize them in any way. I believe from the very core of my being that their walk in what they perceive as to be the truth is genuine and sincere. But they would never at this point, because they're not ready. They're not seeking. We got to this point because we each started, something resonated on the inside of us that said you need to look for a deeper meaning. It can't just be the show and the pageantry and the pomp and pageantry that we see being put on and being played out in front of our very eyes. It has to be more to it than this. But if you look at, when I say to people, we have not gone back into a building, I always get a critical remark. Like, what's wrong with y'all? Are y'all afraid to go back? Or y'all think COVID? And no matter how you try to explain the growth that's taken place as a result of how we are spiritually connected now, people don't always understand that. And I remember saying to Linda on yesterday, a lot of people criticize that we're not back in a building, but a lot of them would do well not to be back in a building as well, because it would cause them to really look inside themselves to search for deeper meaning and understanding of what these scriptures really are talking about. So I asked that question because I spent 2.5 hours in a setting that was still going on when I left, that probably didn't wrap up for another 2.5 hours, about a 5-hour day of people genuinely believing that what they're doing is the right approach to everything. And that's why I asked that question, not trying to be critical of them. It hurt me to know that they're putting all of this effort into something that didn't really mean anything. yesterday. And like I said, I hadn't been in that setting for a while, and I'm not trying to ramble, but I asked that question for a meaning. Yeah, we discovered, we woke up and we started searching. When you're not awakened to the truth and the reality of who you are, and you think those around you who are not doing what you do, because let's be real, the Christian setting that as we knew it, you had to fall in line to be accepted. We broke the mold. We are not falling in line and following what would be the dictates of Christianity and the church as we grew up knowing it. But when you're still there and you're looking at someone else as being the hypocrite, that's why I asked that question. I'm not trying to minimize where we are. And I'm not trying to say that, oh, unless you're on a real spiritual journey, they think they are on a spiritual journey, and it has not resonated in them yet to wake up and say, hey, there's got to be more to it than this. That is why I asked that question. Thank you.
First of all, I understand clearly what you're saying. The most hypocritical people in that setting are the people in the pulpit. Pastors test things out to see what people are going to respond to. And they truly don't believe in what they are doing or saying. They do it in order to be able to boast about how they grabbed the people, or how they kept their attention, or how they moved the setting, and the number of people who responds to them. And what is happening in those settings is not only is the leader being hypocritical, but the leader is also teaching people how to be hypocrites, how to be imposters. Because if you are falling in line to be accepted, then you know what you are doing is not right. You're pretending to be something that you're not. Does that make sense, Kathy?
Yes, it does.
So thank you. So that within itself makes it hypocritical. And I remember the statement, and I'm sure all of you have been in church have heard this at some time or another. I wouldn't have a God that I could make some noise for. If you love the Lord, stand on your feet. If God ever done anything for you, say neighbor, those kind of manipulative things. And you know that this doesn't make sense. It does no good. It's not spiritual at all. But you do it because you don't want to be embarrassed. That's hypocritical. Now, the difference is this. Our parents, the older ones in our families who brought us into the settings of church were sincere about what they're doing. But all of this other stuff came from our charismatic settings. The hype came from charismatic settings. And the reason a lot of it was adopted is because the ones who were supposed to be delivering the message didn't have anything to say. So they pick up from other people. They see it working at one church. Well, I'll give you an example. I remember when we were in the charismatic settings, and we would say, invite the Holy Spirit, because we didn't know any better. And we were told that we were not Baptists when we were doing that. And when this particular moderator saw the responses of the people when the Holy Spirit was invited in, he started doing it. So the question is, was he being real or was he being hypocritical? He was being hypocritical because he didn't believe it. He was simply doing it because he wanted the response of the people. So there are so many different aspects to this hypocrisy, but yet at the same time, we have to delineate between those who are hypocrites and those who are sincere about what they're doing and the experiences they're having. Because some of the things that was shared with me about yesterday, I don't see how anybody can see that as being spiritual at all. So, but anyway, I think, Kathy, that I'm on the same in the same space that you're in and talking about this.
You are. And that's why I was asking that question, just for clarity, because like I said, until you wake up and recognize that there's a journey that you need to take, you think you're right, and you think you're serving according to the scriptures, this being the servant you're supposed to be, and you may not even recognize that there's a journey to take. And I can't go back and pinpoint when I knew that I needed to make some changes and take a different journey. And I think probably most of us on the phone may not be able to pinpoint an exact time when it resonated that it's got to be more to this thing called spirituality than what I'm getting. But we each have gotten there. But I'm basing it a lot on the comments that I get from people who just can't believe that we're not meeting in a building every Sunday and how wrong they think we are. And so I'm kind of tying those two things together, but I just wanted to put that out there. So yes, Pastor, you are on the right track of what I'm asking. So thank you.
Oh, thank you.
I have a comment question. This is Audrey. Good morning, everybody. And I hear everything everybody's saying, but I just want to ask, I think in terms of all of that shouting, blah, blah, whatever ritual stuff they do, I mean, some of that is learned behavior. So some people may realize there's something more. Others are just going on their learned behavior. But my question and my supposition is that we have been talking about going back to beginning for a very long time now. And because we have been on a journey to find what that means, going back to beginning, we have really put that in the macro a lot. Because we've discussed it so much. I truly believe that it is in the macro. And I think people who are now going through whatever ritual or whatever they're doing, that they believe is part of their spiritual journey. And even though it's learned behavior, I think that because we've put in the macro this thing about going back to beginning to discover who we are, what we are, I think that is in effect, and people are, whether they realize it or not, they are sort of going on an internal journey to find themselves. Even if that feels like they are much, much, much more religious than they used to be. But we all went on that journey too. I mean, we knew there was something more, and so we went on that journey too. But in the same way, everybody has their own path to take. But I have to believe that because we put that getting back to beginning into the macro, it's doing what it needs to do in terms of influencing people in terms of them truly searching. And they may not even realize it yet, except, you know, really internally they may be asking questions or whatever. Outwardly, they may be still doing the ritual, but I have to believe that what we've put in the macro is doing what we intended it to do. So, but those people just have a path to follow and a journey to go through, to get to where they need to be in terms of knowing themselves. So does that make sense in terms of what we've been doing with putting our discussions about going back to beginning into the macro?
Audrey, I think we heard those when we listened at that clip yesterday with the traditional preacher picking up on the things that we've talked about.
Yeah.
In terms of the journey we're on and how we're responding to this political environment. That was definitely picked up at the macro. However, there are pastors who are so self-centered and so caught up in moving people in such a manner that they feel validated. They are in denial about anything other than what they have done traditionally. And as a result of that, a lot of the congregations don't have the number of people they had during COVID. There were a lot of people who saw the leadership as well as the church itself for what it was, and they did return to it, and they are now in search of who they are. And yes, indeed, they are picking it up out the macro, and you can hear it in their conversations. Yet, there are those in the churches, especially in our age groupings, who are just as they have always been. And I do also believe that it's easier for them to follow that kind of leadership because they don't have an alternative. They don't see an alternative to it. It's something different, but they don't know what it is. And
Yeah,
there
I can see
are
that.
those settings, pastors, especially female preachers, who do what they do because they know that they won't have access to the pulpit unless they do what they do. And there are those who call and they ask questions about what scriptures mean. But male preachers don't do that. They're either going to, they're open enough to pick it up out the macro and move with it. The problem that I see in the African church is that so many of them are in a position that gives them notoriety. And if they were not in a pastoral position, they would not have any notoriety, neither would they be able to present themselves or present any oratory to a group of people who could accept it, because all they know is making noise and making people shout, singing and making people shout. But as far as teaching, literally standing in front of a group of people, teaching them, they can't do that. So they are in this thing because that is their profession, that is their career, as opposed to being a calling. Yet they call it that. So there are many factors that's involved in what we are talking about, and that's the reason I say that the most effective hypocrite, or the one who is most hypocritical, is the one who is in that pulpit, because they'll do whatever it takes to get people to follow them.
Yeah, I can see that. So, but I think in general, I think I meant not the pastors, but the people. People are starting to really question and sort of follow their path. And I think because of COVID, a lot of people are seeing that all of that ritual stuff, it was not really necessary.
Absolutely. I agree with you wholeheartedly. Anyone else?
Audrey reminded me of something. I was trying to think of where was it in the scriptures where Aaron heard the voice of the people. I think it was Aaron more than he did God when they made the golden calf. I guess being a pastor, you're standing in a place where you need to know what the people are in need of, and you also need to hear truth. And sometimes that can be blurred, or you may not have a clear view as what that looks like. Does that apply here? The pastors that we're talking about that like the excitement, are they thinking that that is what the people desire or the people may be in need of, more so than trying to actually set their ear to hear something from God? Because most of them probably are taking sermons anyway from books or from YouTube or whatever. Does my question make sense? Does that even do you think?
Restate your question, Ron.
Well, I was thinking, are pastors moving more in line with doing what they think the people need or the people want? Maybe the excitement is driven by, I need to entertain them because they're going to leave if I don't, or keep them in a hyper state. And I was thinking, I was comparing it to Aaron and making the golden calf because that's what the people wanted him to do. Does that happen a lot as well? Could that be part of the problem that we're discussing?
My experience with preachers and pastors has been they take their cues from the one who they think is the most influential pastor in the area. And they follow that and they add to it as they go along, filling the people out. To give you an understanding of what I'm trying to say, if you look at especially Gaffney, Spartanburg, Columbia, the older preachers have mostly died out. And the younger preachers are more disjointed than preachers were in the past. Meaning that they have followed so closely as sheep following the goat until they lost sight, or they never knew rather, of what it meant to listen in order to get a message. So without that quote unquote leadership or guidance that they had before, they are making it up as they go. And yes, indeed, they are. The younger preachers are getting messages from the internet. The older preachers were buying them printed messages at the conventions, and the deliverance of those messages was based upon how acceptable it was to those who they saw as the major leaders or major pastors in the area. Now, there are no major pastors in the area. the setting that Kathy is describing, the people in that particular area, there is no real leadership there at all. Everybody there thinks that they are the one who should lead and are leading. And when that takes place, they get further and further away from spirituality and more deeper into entertainment. And whatever they will accept as entertainment, that's what they're going to do. And some of the things that happen are so crazy and disjointed until I was shocked to even hear some of the things that happen. And by no means do I blame the people for what's happening, because they are following leadership. And think about this. Throughout the history of the African communities in this country, who has been the primary leader in those communities? Preachers. And now that entertainment has become more acceptable than anything else, and now that there is no true leadership, anything goes. It's no different than a street gang. If you take all the leaders out of the gang and everybody's fighting to be the leader, then all kinds of things begin to happen, and they get more and more dangerous. Well, in the place of preachers rather, you take the main leadership, they die, and then there was no teaching at all going on before they died, and now they get worse because they lost their way in terms of being one with the method of preaching and teaching. Now they don't have that, so they just do whatever they can come up with, and that in itself will show you that they are not pure thinkers at all. They are followers. They are not thinkers at all. And I'm not just talking about the ones who did not go to the seminary. I'm talking about seminarians as well. They are not thinkers at all. They're simply trained to do what they do and to feel the people out to see what the people accept. That is not leadership. That is not leadership. The leadership, when you lead people, a lot of times it's distasteful what you tell them. But when they see that it's the truth, they follow it. But now, when you're not a thinker, you don't teach people to think. They don't have anything to think about. You teach them to react, not respond. I'm done.
Actually, I think going to seminary makes it worse because that becomes your fallback.
Absolutely. And that gives you a sense of false security.
Yeah.
So this whole thing about hypocrisy, it is indeed a learned behavior, but more so with the leadership than the people. Any other questions or comments? No questions, no comments?
Hey, Pat. How you doing this morning, everyone?
How are you guys?
This is Charles.
Mm-hmm.
Help me to understand this. It's the road leading to spiritual things, like when you were talking about the road to the right way. And in my mind, I was thinking about no man can walk on both sides of the road. They cannot. And if a man gonna walk in the middle of the road, that's the spiritual part of it. Because I saw this, like when God told Abraham to cut those pieces, and he thought, yes, sir.
No, I'm saying, I'm agreeing with you, the pieces.
When he cut those pieces, and he was trying to keep everything from him, And when God walked through those pieces, he didn't walk on the other side of one piece and the other side on the other piece. All spirituality is in the middle. And walking on both sides of those right there, it's gonna seem spiritual on either side, but it's not. But in the center, it's all spiritual. And that's how I see it.
Okay. Thank you, Charles. Anyone would like to respond to that? The way I see that as being in the middle is that on one side you have religion, and on the other side you have what's purported to be atheists, people who don't believe anything. And spirituality does not lean in any direction. It simply is it simply stays the course, and it understands what's happening in both settings, and as a result of that, you're more able to put things in the macro. For example, if we did not understand what's going on in the government environment today, it would be very difficult for us to put things in the macro. If we did not understand what's going on in the church today, it would be very difficult for us to put things in the macro because we would not know what we're working with, and we would not have understandings of it. So in that regard, Charles, I could see what you're saying. But as far as just being in the middle and agreeing with portions of each side, spirituality doesn't do that. Spirituality only travels the journey that guides others to being spiritual, or guides others to a space that is that gives them the opportunity to choose the way that they want to travel, meaning that no different than deliverance. You have to decide whether you want to be delivered spiritually or whether you want to continue to experience a false sense of deliverance in a religious manner. And that's what Joshua was saying when he said, choose ye this day. It was talking about deliverance, because Joshua means to be delivered, or deliverance itself. So in order for you to be delivered from the ways that have caused us to lose sight or to lose our awareness of who we are, we have to make a choice. And that choice is painful for us to walk away from everything that we've been taught all our lives. We can do that and endure that pain and see who we are, or we can remain where we are, where we were rather, in terms of the religious settings, and pretend to be delivered or going to be delivered when we get to heaven. That kind of a thing. I can see it in that way. Any questions or comments about that? Can you
I
see?
have a question though.
1 second, please, Evan. Can you see what I'm saying?
Yes.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, thanks. Go ahead, Evan.
So you don't have to be in that type of setting, the church setting, to be religious, do you? Can you still have let me just leave it there. That's my question.
No. No. You don't. You can, and we hear it all the time. We are being, that has become your job has become a religion to you. You treat your children like they're gods. So we have those words that we use that intimate the religious aspects of things outside of the church. Religion, in that regard, speaks to your attachment to something that you treat as being divine. Does that make sense, Evan?
I need a little more clarity, please.
When I say your children ain't no better than nobody else's children, neither are mine. But we treat them like they're God, especially preachers' children. PKs are treated like they are divine, and everybody else has to try to measure up to them. And in that regard, you're treating your children like they are a religious entity, or a religious entity that is to be worshipped, or a religious entity that you have to measure up to. Does that make sense?
It does. So really, everything is about mindset, right?
Everything is about mindset. I want to show you a difference that I picked up. Well, let me do this first. Is there anyone else want to speak to that before I go there?
I think you said it. Even outside of the church, everything is a religion. Anything that you put in importance in front of yourself and the creator, because you are the creator as well, but you start worshiping something else, whether it be status of your job or your importance or your children, as you said, or that spouse of yours. All of that is you're trying to connect to something that you're not meant to be, that you're trying to make something divine and connect to it, and that is not what is meant. That is not valuable for you to do so. So, in that way, any and everything can be, your thoughts can even take you astray.
And that's usually what does take you astray. Because your thoughts come out of your mouth. Speaking is nothing but a verbal thought. Questions, comments? One of the reasons that is hard, I was reading a book last night, and I picked up something, and what dawned on me is the reason it's difficult to understand us meaning Africans in our speech, is because we don't talk like anybody else. If we really, now, of course, you go to an interview, you go talk like they want you to talk in order for you to get the job. However, when we're in our own settings, we communicate differently. And it's one thing that we have not lost, that we're not aware of what it is, but we speak in concept. We as Africans speak in concept. And I gathered that from having read this idea where the Caucasian says bad, badder, baddest. And we speak in concept because we're like, that's a bad dress, which means that it looks great. Or you're a bad man, which means that I'm saying that you're smart. So we speak conceptually. What's up, dog? That's an endearing what's up. Or we say, a man, you ain't nothing but a dog. So it's the context of the concept, of the context that we're using it, that make our language conceptual, as opposed to when we are talking in the language that we are taught in our Caucasian education, or our European education, is different than that. And the more we become aware of who we are, the more conceptual we become. And I do believe that that is the reason why when we came to an understanding that the New Testament in particular, and the scriptures as a whole, are not literal, they are conceptual. And when questions come about particular scriptures, we are readily able to talk about the concept that are being expressed there, as opposed to the words that's written on the page. And that all comes because our whole sense of education is conceptual. It is not what I want, what word I'm looking for? What word am I looking for? It's not stoic. It's not set in concrete. I know what I'm looking for. It's ours is fluid. There's fluidity in our language, and there is no fluidity in European speaking. Uh, and that is the reason that especially those who are supposed to be scholars, European scholars, when it comes to scriptures, are unable to speak conceptually about what's written on the pages. They are only able to speak in literal terms and take a concept and give it a proper name, like in Moses, as opposed to realizing that the concept of Moses means to draw something out or to draw out or to purge yourself of something. So that is part of the difficulty in our communicating with other people who don't speak conceptually. Now we can understand them, but very rarely they are able to understand us or even accept what we say. And when we speak conceptually, we are told that we are uneducated, or we are told that we are not speaking proper English, whatever the hell that is. I'm sorry. We are told that the language that we're using is a colloquial language, and it should not be spoken in social settings or in proper settings. So I want us to think. I want us to think about how what I'm saying, because I do believe that the more we embrace the reality that we are conceptual people, the easier it will be for us to function in this earth as we were created to function. And that is as forces of divinity that are here in order to bring humanity to a space of divinity within itself, as opposed to the secular nature that we have been inundated with. We are moving away from that now, and if when we look at Abraham, for example, we don't see a man, we see a concept. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Can you see
Yes, it does. Yes,
that-
it does. And what I heard in what you're saying is that when you're speaking conceptually versus literally is what draws the boxes. It puts the box, it frames whatever you're saying, and you try to stuff and put a context around what you're saying and define it based on what's in the box. But conceptually, it's more expansive. It allows you to see all of the potential possibilities without trying to confine it to one particular thing that everybody understands from that one definition. And so without the risk of meandering or just talking, I'll just stop.
Yeah. Thank you. Anyone else? If you don't understand what I'm saying, please ask. Let me know or let us know so we can expand it more and be hopefully clearer than what we have been.
Well, you did answer my question. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hey, Pastor, this is Charles again. About speaking the way we speak and we understand it, that's no different than when Jesus was speaking parable and he was asking if you have an ear, to hear it. And he never spoke to the people like he did the disciples, but he spoke to them in parable.
Mm.
Well, you have to think about what he said and see what it said.
But even that, Charles, is different because Jesus, there was no Jesus, which means that it was simply, if you are to be delivered, these are some of the things you understand. All of those are concepts of deliverance that we are talking about. They are not the words of a man. They are concepts of deliverance. You cannot expect to bury your valuables in the ground and for them, you cannot expect them to grow. You cannot expect your consciousness to change if you are not willing to what do you call it when you're in a garden to cultivate. If you're not willing to cultivate your conscious desires, then you cannot expect them to grow, or you don't cultivate your understanding. You cannot expect for it to grow. You cannot expect to understand wisdom if you don't seek wisdom. Those are the kinds of things that is attributed to a man called Jesus. The reason that it is a man called Jesus is because the people who created this entity are unable to think conceptually. As Barbara said, when you're not thinking conceptually, when you're not processing conceptually, that puts everything in a box. There are no definition, there are no definitive meanings to any word. Definitive meaning to a word puts it in a box. A dog is a dog, and if I say "What's up, dog," that can't be affection because I'm talking about a dog on the ground when I'm talking about a concept. That those kinds of things it is what puts a box around it. And when you truly look at the linguistic structure of African languages in particular, and those that are perceived to be, what do you see? You see that one word can mean multiple things based upon the context in which it is used. So again, that is what caused our awareness to be buried deep inside of us. And the thing that caused that is we are looking at a literal Jesus as opposed to the reality of deliverance from our ignorance in this earth. So even with that, Charles, it is different than what we have been taught it should be, or what we have been taught it is. And I revert to the thing that has crippled us the most. It is believing that there is such a thing as theology. There is no such thing as theology, the study of God, the study of the one who created you. That in itself is crippling because you are struggling to understand something that is impossible for you to understand. And you are struggling to understand something that you are not. And the reason you are not is because you've been told that you are not. Now, if you look at the divine entity that you are, and you begin to look at the scripture, it's talking about you. It's talking about the divine aspects of you and what you have to do to become aware of it and to maintain this journey of divinity in this earth. Does that make sense?
It makes sense.
Okay.
So what you're saying, there's no such thing as a Jesus the way it's been portrayed.
Absolutely. That's exactly what I'm saying. That's
All
exactly.
right. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you for clearing that up because I didn't know.
Okay. You're welcome. I mean, Jesus is just as real as Santa Claus. But it does not say the concepts are not real. And that's how we are able to study the scriptures and at the same time be aware of has happened and is happening historically. The reason that we were told through Christianity is that we are not supposed to mix history with spiritual, with the church or with religion. It's because they don't want us to know what the history is. Because when we understand what the history is, we see that this religion is a farce. And when you hear someone say prehistoric, what do you think they're saying? Prehistoric. They are saying before Europeans. Because prehistoric means is before the written history of Europeans or the history that was written by Europeans. That's what prehistoric means. So what it's actually saying, if you accept that, is before there were Europeans, there was no history. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And we have to be cognizant of that. Any other questions or comments? Before we leave today, I want you to go ahead.
Excuse me. What you just explained about prehistory, is that not a good example of hypocrisy? Creating the illusion that there is really no other history other than Christianity, European history,
Yeah, it's
Christianity
pretending to
history?
be something that is not. Yes. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Hypocrisy, deception, the whole 9 yards. Because when you talk about the devil, according to Christianity, is a entity. It's a entity that survives like a created entity, as opposed to a concept of deception. The deceiver, the manipulator. Does that make sense?
Very much so. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments before end with this statement? I want to first of all apologize to Evelyn because I got so caught up yesterday. I forgot to let you guys know that Evelyn's brother had transitioned. One of her brothers transitioned on Friday, I think it was, wasn't it, Evelyn?
Yes, sir. It's Mary's brother also.
Yeah, Mary and Evelyn's brother. I'm sorry. Miss Mary, accept my apology. And in addition to that, Angela's grandson was killed last night in Gaffney. So I solicit you guys to do as we have been doing, but more with being more conscious of it. To continuously breathe and to continuously send your energy their way, because regardless of how things happen, even if you know somebody's going to transition, it still has an effect on you, and you need the empathy, the sympathy, the comfort of those around you. And we offer that, though we're not there present physically. It is there. We are there spiritually with you. And the funeral that Catherine was referencing yesterday was one of her first cousins, or she and Linda's first cousin who transitioned. So as these things transpire, yes, we know differently than we thought we did about where people are and how things happen. In terms of spirituality, they've become an ancestor. We understand that. But yet, at the same time, the question becomes, why is it that we feel the way we do when someone transitions? I do believe that the reason we feel the way we do is because we are experiencing the reality that a part of us has has left the body that they were in and is in a different place now, and we feel it. And I also believe that that feeling that we have towards them, that feeling of loss is really a misnomer. It is rather than being a feeling of loss, I think it truly is a feeling of them not being physically present with us, but with the understanding that they have become an ancestor. And to give you an example of what I'm talking about, you may have a sibling who you have not seen in 5 years, and they live in a different place. And the moment they transition, all of a sudden you feel a loss. Well, you had not seen them in 5 years, and you had not experienced what you're experiencing now. So it is a sense of the exiting of the body, the exiting of this earthly space, this earthly consciousness, and entering into life itself. And when we realize that the entrance is into life itself, or then, and they are an ancestor, it doesn't make it easy at all, but it make it easier to embrace. And I hope that makes sense to you guys. So we are indeed with all of you because we are each other. So that's what I wanted to share with you guys before we end this session. Questions?
Thank you, Pastor Jay. Thank you, family, Foundation family. Thank you so much, Pastor Jay. Again, we appreciate everyone.
Yeah, we actually we're not Foundation or Great New Faith anymore. We are Faith Ministries because we have come together as one. So we are one body, the tip of the spear, the vanguard for change in this earth. I want you to remember that. We're not the vanguard for change in America. We're the vanguard for change in this earth.
Ashe.
Ashe.
Okay.
George, GC,
Ashe.
you have something to say?
No, I was just going to say our condolences is extended to those who have lost loved ones, and just know that, as pastors say, we all are one yet many. So our condolences to you all.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. If there are no comments or questions, then we will meet again on tomorrow evening at 6 o'clock. And if there are questions that come to you between now and then, please make a note of them and bring them to our attention. So now, enjoy the rest of your day, wherever you are. And I want you to know, as always, that I love you guys. So talk with you later. Bye-bye.
Love you all too.
Love you all too.
Everybody.
Love. Thank you,
You
guys.
all.
Later.
Bye.
Love you.